and I will share the screen. Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome all of you to the BSc 534, Legislation Aspects of Fire Safety Management. Now, this is the second meeting we have, or the second lecture. Now, you still notice or remember last time we have introduced the fire safety regulations and fire safety management. And we have some legislation following some fatal fires locally in Hong Kong. So it leads to, say, the enactment of some ordinance, some regulations, and we also have the codes of practice by the Fire Services Department, which govern the active fire services installations, and the passive fire safety systems or passive building design by the Buildings Department. Okay, and there are also some local codes and standards that refers and related to fire safety. Now, today, we will look into the principle of fire safety standard and fire safety management plan. Okay, so as I've announced, you have the, say, lecture notes and materials available from the blackboard. And you may also notice that in the content area, the teaching schedule have been updated a bit. So we have the addition of the teaching support with the email address being added. Okay, so for the group formation, you can send me and send Dr. Huang and Yifan the group list so that we will solve the grouping for you. So in case you do not know anyone in the class, you are also welcome to send us emails about you just have by yourself, and you can you're willing to group with other students, and then we will note it down and let you have your grouping as soon as possible. Okay. Okay, so this is the main change or update I have in the teaching schedule. Okay, now for today's meeting or lecture, principle of fire safety standard and fire safety management plan. In fact, it will be divided into several parts, 4 main parts. Now, the first part will be international fire safety standard with common principle. We call it IFSS CP, okay? And we have the fire safety strategies and measures. After that, we have the development of the fire safety management plan, okay? And last but not least, the safety manual, fire safety manual, the British standard 9999. Okay, and we will go to the reference. As last time, we will have 2 breaks in between the 3 hours, or 2 and 50 minutes. Okay, and so let's start. Now for the, let me hide the, sorry, hide this one first. Where can I hide this? For the international fire safety standard, okay, or the common principle. Common principle is a common set of internationally accepted, say, principles, which for fire safety aspects, it is related to engineering design, construction, occupation, and ongoing management. Sorry, I need to hide this first. How can I hide this? Okay, thank you. Floating meeting controls. Yes, otherwise it will block the view. Now, for the common principles, they are related to all the real estates, classes, and all regions and nations, regardless of different political, economical, social, and technological differences. Now, fire regulations are designed to make sure safety and minimize the risks which are associated with fire hazard. Now, some of the principles target to have safe building, safe lives. Okay, for prevention, the first one, I used the pen. Okay, for the first one, prevention, safeguarding against the outbreak of fire or limiting the effect of fire, including smoke or the flame. Now, under the IFSSCP, prevention is the foundation of fire safety in buildings. So this principle emphasizes proactive measures. So something taken in advance, okay, so as to eliminate or reduce the fire risk before they can cause any harm to the occupant or the property. Remember the fire safety objectives we have: life safety, property protection, and business continuity. Okay, so before any harm to the occupant, property, etc., we try to reduce the fire risk. Now, prevention also includes careful design and construction practice. We may also consider use of some fire retardant materials or fire resistance materials. For example, the solver, okay, if it is just solver of PU foam with clothing without any fire retardant spray on it, okay, it will ignite quickly. But once we have fire retardant materials or fire retardant sprays, it will have a coating which will delay the ignition, and the time for ignition will be elongated, which will increase the protection and prevent the fire occur. Now, we also have adherence to some fire safety codes and regulations. So regular inspection, maintenance, and inspection or even testing of the electrical appliances, mechanical systems, and safe storage of hazardous materials, which are the combustibles, fuel of the fire, are very essential. Education and training, okay, is another important issues for the staff and also the occupants to further enhance the prevention effort. Now, prioritizing prevention, the likelihood of fire incidents is significantly reduced. And of course, this will create a safer environment and protecting life and property. Okay, this is the first one. How about detection and communication? For detection and communication, investigating the fire or discovering the fire, followed by informing the occupants and fire services, okay, will be resulted. We may try to consider ensure that the fire are identified quickly in a timely manner. Okay, so the information is relayed effectively, delivered, and notify the occupants quickly. Otherwise, okay, what will happen? Okay, smoke generated first will cause suffocation of the occupants and also affect their visibility, as mentioned before. Now, early detection, we may have smoke detectors or heat detectors. They may have different operating principles, and they also play an important role in alerting the people, the occupants, and also the fire services, emergency services, to the presence of fire. So communication systems have to be effective in the sense that they include the alarm guns, alarm bells, public address system. So they will try to have announcement in different languages in case needed to notify the occupants where to go and what is the instructions to be taken. You may also find visual alert for those who cannot hear, and also we have the alarm bells to make sure everyone in the building receive clear information and instructions. Now, regular testing and maintenance of these detection system, alarm system, alerting system are required to guarantee their reliability. Okay, so reliability is the key to detection. Okay, and if in case we have false alarm or unwanted alarm, we may have the cry roof syndrome. That once the story with the shepherd who cry out that there is a wolf coming to catch his lamb or sheep. The neighbor found that it is just a lie. For the first 2 times, the neighbor comes, but for the 3rd time, they think it is false one. But actually, there's a real wolf coming. So this is the cry wolf syndrome, that the people tend to ignore the alarms or the call if we have too many false alarms or unwanted alarms. Now, for regular testing of these guarantees reliability and rapid detection and communication, enable swift, quick emergency response and evacuation. And now for the occupant protection. Now, this facilitating the occupant's avoidance of an escape from the effect of fire, which includes smoke and heat and flame. Safeguarding the people within the building during emergency is of paramount importance, and this involves designing the safe and egress routes, okay, the means of escape, which we need to provide clear signatures, the exit signs, the directional signs, and also make sure that those exits are unobstructed and they are well lit, okay, with sufficient, say, lux level, 2 lux level, for example, for the evacuation route. And we also have fire doors, emergency lighting, and sometimes in tall buildings, you usually find a refuge floor or refuge area. Nowadays, we find it at the stairwell for evacuation and temporary stature of the people who may not be effective in walking, such as those in wheelchairs. Okay, now regular fire drills have to be carried out, and occupant training helps to make sure that everyone know how to respond in emergency. Okay, for example, the staff who are more familiar with the environment should help direct the occupant, the other occupant who are transient in the building, to the nearest escape route. And they may also be trained to use proper portable fire extinguishers, and know how to operate them. Okay, and there are some instructions to follow during the training. And if they are well trained during emergency, they can perform quickly. Now, the buildings also can facilitate safe and orderly evacuation, reduce the panic of the occupant, and lower the risk of injury and loss. So this is for occupant protection, which is related to life safety. Okay. Containment. Containment is limiting of the fire and all the consequence, like again, smoke, as contained and confined in a compartment, for example, as small an area as possible. So this outline that in the International Fire Safety Standard Common Principle, that the ability to limit the spread of smoke and heat within the building. Now, this is also achieved by the use of fire-resistant construction materials like the walls or partitions, which are having certain fire-resistant rating. Normally in Hong Kong, we have 4 types of fire resistant rating, which is 30 minutes, 60 minutes, that is an hour, 120 minutes, which is 2 hours, and 240 minutes, which is 4 hours. Okay. And those for 4 hours, you may find it more common in at basements. So the containment also achieved through compartmentation. So try to subdivide the large area like this hall or theater, lecture theater, into smaller compartments, smaller rooms. Okay, so we may also install some barriers or doors which helps to confine and contain the smoke and heat. Now, properly designed containment measures help to isolate the fire and the area of origin, fire origin. So it helps to protect the escape route. It helps to allow more time for evacuation. So I think I have used this as an example. If we confine the heat and smoke for an original open plan area, the occupant will have more time for evacuation. Okay, it buys times and save lives. Okay, and also it's have the containment with regular inspection and maintenance also help to ensure its effectiveness. Okay, no leakage or no cracks in the wall or partitions. And effective containment not only protects occupant, but also minimize property damage. Okay, because it takes time for the spread of heat and smoke to other places. Okay, extinguishment. Okay, we also considered fire control, which reduce the heat release rate. If it is uncontrolled, the heat release rate will increase significantly, which is the time. If we for example, allow the act of fire extinguishers, like sprinkler system, the fire growth may not be steep, okay, in slope, but it is under control. Okay, if it is having a negative slope, it is being suppressed. Of course, if it dies to 0, it is extinguished. So you may notice that the final line of defense in the IFSCP, focusing on the rapid suppression of fire, is to prevent escalates, that is having a steep slope. Okay, so this is when the active system, for example, sprinkler head operates. Okay, buildings should be equipped with appropriate fire suppression system. Besides sprinkler system, we may have fire extinguishers, which are portable with different agents, water, CO2, foam, okay, being available in the portable extinguishers. And we also have fire hydrant and hose reel systems. Hydrant is used by the well-trained firemen, okay, because when they try to attack the fire hydrant will have sufficient flow rate, which is 450 liters per minute, and the range of the pressure is 350 to 850 kPa. Okay, and it needs to be well trained to host the tubing tightly. Otherwise, it's just having difficulties to monitor it. All this, okay, are tailored or specially designed to detect special risk being present in the building. Okay, in some cases, water is not a good medium to extinguish the fire, but we will use carbon dioxide or other gaseous agent like Novak 1230 or FM 200, etc. Now, automatic system can control or extinguish the fire before emergency services arrived. That is before the firemen arrived. Although the performance preached by the fire service department is 6 minutes, if I remember correctly. You can kind of check from the website that they will arrive at this fire scenery with support, okay, to extinguish the fire. They will try to get the water supply from the street hydrant through the fire engine, which is the major pump, and pump the water through the inlet, whether it is sprinkler inlet or FS, that is the fire service inlet, to allow water to fill up the pipe works, okay? Before they arrived, of course, the water tank will supply water as the source to extinguish the fire. And we may also consider regular maintenance and staff training is important to ensure these systems are functioning well in case of emergency. And they are all kept at good conditions. Now, we also target to have a prompt and effective extinguishment. Over the time, we learned that fundamental fire safety principles to prevent fire events and manage the impact can be consistently applied internationally. Okay, so this is an international fire safety standard with common principle. Now, next, we will try to look into, sorry, next slide. I found that strange. Okay. The slides, I need the eraser. Sorry about that. The next slide shows the challenging factors. Okay. So the first is tragedy. It seems to have a different mechanism in writing on the slides. Okay. Now, tragedy or tragedies are the catastrophic fire or building which may collapse in some case, or there are some violation of the fire safety standard in some cases with some authorized building structure or some accidental fire or arson fire that may happen. So this will include the loss of life, okay, mainly, okay, some injuries or property damage, and we may consider each tragedy prompt a thorough review of the building codes. Okay, as mentioned in last week, we found that, for example, the large building fire, which lead to the enactment of the ordinance. Okay. So, learning from experience or past incidents or accidents, it is important to improve prevention and detection and also response strategies. Okay, so analyze the cause reasons why the accident happened, whether it is due to carelessness, due to the ignition of some cigarette ends or the extinguished matches, etc., which should be prevented from occurring again. Growth in global population, okay, rapid growth of global population place high pressure on infrastructure and resources, which include fire safety system. And more people occupy the residential buildings, commercial and public buildings, okay, shopping centers, and the complexity of this infrastructure of the buildings ensure that everybody's safety increases. Now, high population density lead to overcrowding of the areas, making evacuation during emergency very difficult and more challenging. So we need to have new housing and facilities which result in faster construction. Okay, and this may compromise the safety standards. Now, adjusting the challenges required comprehensive planning and updated regulation. And in fact, some investment should also be put, okay, to protect the large and diverse population with complexity in the built environment. Okay, greater urbanization. This is the development of dense populated city, like Hong Kong with high-rise and super tall buildings. Mixed usage of complex. For example, the deep underground railway stations, increased transportation networks. Now, urban growth or urbanization increased unique fire safety challenge with limited access for the firemen to access or to respond, okay, and increase the risk of fire spread, okay, such as those deep underground station. You may find that there are no open air, okay, that directly lead to the station because it is underground, okay, and they need to evacuate in an opposite manner. Instead of evacuating downward, they need to evacuate upwards. And the smoke need to be exhausted or extracted by mechanical systems. Okay, so large number of occupants have to be evacuated. Now, they may also have the urban environment featured older buildings along with the new constructions, okay, that will considered some inconsistency in safety standard. Now, effective urban fire safety requires integrated planning, okay, regular inspections as mentioned, and try to have adoption of innovative technology to manage the risk. Now, for new emerging technology pose electrical and other challenges. Okay, a smart home system and renewable energy sources and some advanced electrical devices or even some battery car that is very common will introduce additional challenges related to fire safety. So if not properly monitored or managed, the complex electrical installations can increase the electrical fire. Okay, so as you know, electrical fire with the lithium-ion batteries, solar panels, electric vehicle charging stations, okay, in the car park, are examples of some innovations that required additional and updated safety protocols. Now, ensuring building codes and safety standards have to keep pace, okay, with these advanced technology. Regular training for those who install and inspect, okay, along with education to the public, helps to mitigate and minimize the risks associated with the integration of these new technologies. Now, for new building materials and systems, we may have lightweight composites. We may have modular components and innovative insulation products. Okay, so this may improve the energy efficiency and have faster construction, which may behave differently in fires compared to traditional materials. So this may contribute to rapid fire spread, okay? So produce more toxic smoke, okay, which may also lead to the tragic or the injuries of the occupant. Now, it is essential to thoroughly test and certify new materials for their fire performance. For example, with standardized fire tests, okay? And in turn, we need to update the building codes. Of course, we need to carry out more research and try to have more development and collaboration between manufacturers, regulators, the government, and also the fire safety professionals like the academia. Now, how about building envelope performance? Okay, envelope performance, more physical barrier between the interior and exterior of the buildings. The modern envelope may incorporate advanced material as mentioned. They may also have curtain wall buildings. Okay, they may have the solar panels. Okay, which will help to improve efficiency, energy efficiency, and the aesthetic design, better outlook. Okay, but this change just may affect how the fire and smoke spread. Okay, even with the double skin facade, the double layer of the walls may have different effect to the ventilation and the smoke spread inside with respect to outside of the buildings. A poorly designed and constructed envelope may also allow the fire to penetrate and travel between the floors more easily. So they are undermining the containment effect. So we need to ensure that the building envelope and also the facade meets vigorous fire resistance standards. Again, inspection, maintenance, and the use of some tested fire stopping system is necessary. Okay, so now we aim to improve, the cost, business efficiency, quality, customer satisfaction, environment performance, and sustainability, predictable of delivery time scales. Now for the costs, about money, we need to improve the cost efficiency. For example, we try to optimize the resources being allocated and try to streamline the process so as to reduce the time, the waste. The organization can also lower the operation costs and expenses. Now, we have effective cost management, which involves careful budgeting And we also have regular financial monitor and adoption of cost-saving technologies. Now, this help to ensure projects remain within the budget and increase the profitability and try to have better value to the stakeholders, the client, for example. Besides, the transparent cost control allow trust to be built between the client and the investor, which will secure future business and investigation. Okay, so ultimately, the improved cost efficiency will support long-term financial stability and competitiveness in the business and the market. For the business efficiency, okay, the process is made faster and smoother and more productive. Okay, they were achieved through the automation or better knowledge design or workflow and eliminate some redundant tasks. Okay, as technology advances, we may also have efficient business which delivered the products and service more quickly with fewer resources. Okay, this helps to increase the output and profit. Okay, and improve efficiency also allow the organization to adapt more readily to the market change and customer needs and demand. Quality, okay, the third one. Improve quality, ensure that the product and service consistently meet or even exceeding the customer's expectation and the regulatory standards. Okay, if we try to have regular implementation of the quality control, inspection, and continuous staff training, okay, high quality output will reduce the likelihood of defects, returns, or customer complaints. Okay, so this also leads to the next point, customer satisfaction. Okay, this will encourage repeating business, which allows and involves the understanding of customers' needs and delivering of promised and providing excellent service. Environment performance. Okay, this one reduce negative impact to the operation of on the environment. For example, we noticed that we need to minimize the waste. Okay, waste, conserve the energy, and also use sustainable materials. Okay, and this will reduce emission of some polluted gas, etc. Now, we may also have some recycling program, adopt some green technology, and also protect the natural resources. Okay, sustainability, predictability of delivery time scale. Okay, this refers to the completion of the project on time and with minimum environmental impacts. Okay, so these are some of the things to be improved. Now, for a connected or more consistent approach, will yield considerable benefits and improve ability to respond to events. Now, for the connected and consistent approach, okay, this allowed the organization to respond to events promptly, swiftly, and effectively. Okay, respond. Now, by integrating the communication channels, standardizing the procedures, and ensuring all the stakeholders who have access to the real-time information, teams may coordinate their actions and make the informed decisions during emergency quickly. Now, this will ensure confusion to be avoided they will minimize the delay. As always emphasize, time is very important, and we need to notify, for example, the occupant in a quickly manner, okay, because the smoke spread quickly. And this also enhanced the overall effectiveness of the response. Now, whether dealing with operational disruption, safety incidents, or market changes, unified strategies allowed the resources to be mobilized effectively and efficiently, where everyone, especially the staff, know their roles and responsibility during an fire occur. Okay. Monitoring ongoing development. Okay. So this refers to, for example, centralized data collection and analysis allows for real-time tracking of some key performance indicator, the KPIs, emerging trends and potential risk that will happen in the development. We need to maintain a clear and up-to-date overview, okay, so that the decision maker can quickly identify what is specific to the development and try to make corresponding actions and adjust strategies accordingly. Anticipate future threats and opportunities. Sorry. Now, this is considered identify patterns and predict potential challenges or area for growth, and provide and enable the proactive risk management and strategy planning, okay, which allows the organization to prepare for any fire occurrence. Learn from past failure and success. So learn from past failures. We noted we investigate what is the cause of the fire or accidents and try to avoid it and have preventive measures. But even the success, okay, we need to learn from good examples, okay, lesson learned and share across the teams, and preventing the repetition of the mistakes and promote best practice. Now, current contrasting approaches and requirements across the world. So in some parts of the world, especially in the developing countries or regions with limited resources, there may be no locally developed building regulations or documents. So the absence will lead to inconsistency in construction practice. And this will also have various levels of safety and quality, okay, not well defined. Now, unclear and without enforceable standard, builders and developers may rely on informal guidelines, and sometimes we have outdated practices. Okay, so this will increase the risk of fire accidents and maybe cause structural failure. Contrasting. Certain region or nation may not have their own building regulation documents, okay, and depend on national and international references for the regulation. For example, the IBC, International Building Code. Okay, the International Building Code IBC is widely adopted as a recognized code developed by the International Code Council, ICC. We have the provision of comprehensive requirements for the design, construction, maintenance of the building, which cover the structural integrity, that is, the building will not collapse, fire safety, okay, and accessibility and energy efficiencies. So IBC is regularly updated to reflect the advance in technology. For the NFPA, National Fire Protection Association, okay, it is a leading authority on fire safety standards and codes, especially in the United States, but also internationally. NFPA, National Fire Protection Association. So a lot of abbreviations or acronyms to be found. Now, NFPA also develops the NFPA 101, the Life Safety Code, okay, which address fire prevention, protection, emergency response. So these are based on large and extensive research studies and expert consensus and also real-world experience. Okay. Now, fire safety related UN Sustainable Development Goals. Okay, so the following is fire safety related. So the United Nations, UN, Sustainable Development Goal, SDG. Okay, we have different, for example, we have the good health and well-being. Now, fire safety reduce injuries and fatality and long-term health impacts caused by fire, supporting healthier lives and well-being. Okay, so we have good health and well-being. For the quality education, we considered some schools' education ensure uninterrupted education, and also this protects the students and staff from fire hazard. And this will foster a secure learning environment. Okay, we also have, for example, industry innovation and infrastructure. Okay, so by carrying out the fire safety standards in the infrastructure and industry, this will encourage innovation in building materials, construction methods, okay, while protecting investment and ensure the operation continuity. Sustainable cities and communities with fire safety is essential for building resilient cities and communities, which helps to prevent disaster and protect the population who are vulnerable, okay, easily injured, and support sustainable urban development. The climate action, okay, wildfire and urban fire contribute to greenhouse emission and environmental degradation. So the fire prevention and preparedness helps to reduce the impact and support the climate resilience. Peace, justice, and strong institution. Okay. The strong fire safety regulations and enforcement have contributed to effective and accountable institution and promotes the public trust in governance. Partnership for the goals. Okay, so international collaboration on fire safety standard and some best practices has strengthened the global partnership and accelerates the process towards sustainable development. So in summary, the fire safety underpins that many sustainable development goals, SDGs, by protecting lives and supports the resilient structures and reduce environmental harms. Now, the next part, we look at fire safety and education. Okay. The education and promulgation of the information supports the IFSS, okay, which is mentioned earlier, okay. the international fire safety standards. Now, we may consider the community with general public or the population and the government. And then we have public awareness campaigns, education in schools, and education to different groups of people, the stakeholder groups, and within which the facilities have different owners, managers, and the occupant who occupied or stay inside the building. We need to train them properly how to use the facilities and also equipment. As we know, we have facility management, evacuation training and practices. Okay, how to have fire drills and training in obligations. Further, we have professions: firefighter, designer, developers, engineers, builders, installers, maintenance, certifiers, regulators. Now, for these parties, they have research and education in, for example, institution or universities with higher learning. Some of them have in-service education and professional development, okay, on real attacks of fire, and responsible for education and recognition through licensing. Okay, so the education and promulgation of information should occur at different levels of the community and direct the facilities and stakeholders and professions to follow the initiation and operation of the facilities. Oops. Slide number 10. Okay. We have the IFSSCP established the overarching performance-based common principle for fire safety engineering, design, construction, occupation, and ongoing management. Okay, so the adoption of the common principles help to protect people, okay, and the buildings with its contents, okay, and the environment from destruction or destructive effect of the fire. Okay, so this diagram shows that the interaction between the law, codes or regulations, and also the standards, okay, and how common principle outline can apply at different stages, can be applied at different stages. Now, the common principle also become actionable through the framework. Okay, this is the framework which allows evidence-based assessment to achieve the fire safety engineering design, construction, operation, and ongoing management of the building level. Okay, it is a collective application of the common principles that applies at different stages, okay, of the building life cycle. Okay, and in fact, we have design, construction, in use, okay, change, and demolition. 5 stages, okay, during the property life cycle. And the framework is also an important step to achieve consistent fire safety design and management in the real estate during these stages. Circumstances of the IFSSCP framework. So this is relevant to individuals and the communities and used by different groups of people. We have the public sector and we have the private sector. Okay, so they have influence over the building fire safety arrangement. For public, okay, we have education, we have expectation from different people. We need to minimize the fire impacts on them, and we usually have legislation and regulation to govern the building codes and legislations. Assets protection, training, insurance. Okay, insurance is very common and important. Containment to avoid third-party loss. Okay, it's about the public and the private sector respectively. What they are in common, okay, environmental protection, life safety, protection from fire and prevent the fire to occur, and enforcement. Business continuity, structural fire safety without collapse of buildings, and spatial plannings. Okay, so in fact, this first section have tried to go through the common principles of the international fire safety standards. Do you have any questions? The next part will be the fire safety strategy and measures, okay, considering the stages and also some aspects. Okay. Note that the time is 7:27. Okay, maybe I uh, will have a break, 5 minutes. Okay, do you have any questions so far? If no, we will start at 7:33. Okay, thank you. Okay, sorry for being a bit late to start. Now, for section 2, fire safety strategies and measures, you can see that this is actually a matrix, okay? So with the stages on the left column and on the right side, we have prevention, detection, communication, occupant safety, containment, and extinguishment. This is what we have in slide number 3. Okay, this 5. Okay, so in fact, now we have different sections. Okay, so the framework also articulates the functions and lifespan characteristics and attribute of fire safety in buildings. Now, it can be used to determine the general and specific function, like the building and management, the hierarchy, competency, knowledge and skills, etc. So the IFSSCP has been designed for policymakers, professionals, and others to make sure that they have considered the full breadth, okay, and depth, okay, both the width and depth, okay, deep, how deep is it, and the range of fire safety strategies and measures at different stages in the building life cycle. Okay, so we may have some steps, in fact, for the framework. Now, if we look at the next slide, you can see, okay, we have the prevention principle, okay, to establish how accurate and reliable the information within the common principles. Okay, prevention. Okay, we have detection and communication. We also have occupant protection. So you can see that different tables, okay, with respect to the building life cycle, different stages are considered. Okay, and further, slide number 15 is the containment and extinguishment. Okay, so on the left column is the common principle as shown, whereas for the building fire safety measures is the second column, okay, and the building life cycle stages is the third column. Okay, so we have a checklist, okay, for all the items. Now, for the verification and enforcement at each stage. So the key components of good verification process have to include some points. For example, accountability. That means it must be comprehensive and visible. Okay, so it is accountable. It should be competent, have qualified people, qualification, assessment, proper regulations, validation, and certifications. We also considered quality assurance. Okay, so it should be valid and verified. We have reviewed the cycle, whether it is in use or the codes. Okay, so in order for the framework verification process to carry out effectively, we have different parties for the review. For example, the reviewer, we have stakeholders, we have independent certifiers and verifiers. Okay, so the verification and enforcement, okay, to make sure that the building has the fire safety level intended, it is important and necessary to carry out verification and control process at each of the life cycle stages. Okay, again, you can see that the building phase, construction phase, okay, in use phase, change phase, and demolish phase. So it requires existing of the established environment of the third party with qualification, certification, and accreditation. Okay, and also involvement of the verifier does not relieve the responsibility of all the stakeholders. Now, to apply common principle to the building life cycle, we have the preventive principle, which match or try to consider it at the design stage. And the objective is safeguarding against the outbreak of fire and limits the effect. So assessment of the risk and proposed fire protection measures should take into account of recognized causes of fire. For example, arson, electrical fire, and accidental fire, which may caused by cooking, smoking, open flame, candles, chemical spills, hot work, etc. And we also have explosion, sometimes due to dust or gas explosion, fireworks, and natural causes with lightning strikes and wildfire, which happened in forest. Okay, and at every stage of the building life cycle, measures must be established within the framework, okay, to prevent the occurrence of fire. Now here at design, we also considered product safety. Okay, so these fire safety strategies and measures have to be considered. Electrical safety and consideration of combustibility and smoke producing characteristic of the materials and systems. So these, for example, we considered interior finish materials or external building construction and the content inside a room or compartment. Next is the occupant behavior. Okay, what are they doing? Are they smoking, cooking with open flame, or use of medical oxygen? May also take a risk. Natural or man-made disaster, intentional acts. Okay, arson is one of them. That is intentional acts. Process safety in industrial facilities, chemical spillage or spills, high temperature process, hot work, okay, are examples. Distance to external hazard. Since buildings are closely packed, there may be effect on the other buildings that is adjacent to the building itself or themselves. Some car parks and storage of combustibles, materials, and gases. Now, the second stage is construct, okay, with respect to the preventive principle. We have security, that is to prevent intruders or some strangers who may deliberately and accidentally start a fire. Okay, so security and safety or fire safety sometimes is in contradiction because once we want to allow the occupant to evacuate freely away without any obstacle. For example, no door under lock. But on the other hand, due to security, we do not want strangers or some intruders to come into the building to set fires. So we may lock the door. Okay, so this may be a concern. Control of combustible materials on site. Okay, control of waste, storage, and disposal away from the potential source of ignition. There may also be storage of construction materials, combustible substance, and control of items that are stored and used on site, okay, which may pose a fire risk. Assessment of high-risk procedures, okay, hot work permits or controls, for example, used for welding and grinding, okay, have to be noted. Control of exposed combustible materials on structure due to different stages of construction. Now, we may try to have protect exposed combustible materials and also consider primary and secondary sources of ignition. Behavior of construction worker. Again, this may lead to the ignition due to smoking or cooking. Now, how about in use, the stage in use for preventive principle? We need to educate the occupants on the prevention of fire. For example, the hot work processes, okay, if it is one that may construct fire in the site, on safe evacuation principle and on safe evacuation of the occupants and their behavior related to smoking and cooking. Smoke controls, okay, whether it is having the extraction system properly designed and maintained, electrical equipment safety, and identification of potential hazard, such as some storage of easily ignited materials in common areas. Stage 4, preventive principle, stage 4 change. Soft change. Okay, soft change refers usually for some non-structural modification within a building. For example, the changes in occupancy, the usage, or operational procedures, or sometimes introduction of new equipment and furnishing. So these changes or adjustment can subtly alter the fire risk and safety requirement. For example, by increasing the number of occupants and rearrange the office layout, which may impact on evacuation routes and emergency response plan. How about physical building changes? Okay, this involves more structural modification. For example, addition of rooms, new rooms, altering the wall or partitions, expanding the floor spaces. So these changes will significantly affect the fire prevention measures by introducing new pathways for fire spread or altering the effectiveness of existing fire barriers and detection methods. We may try to conduct a thorough fire risk assessment before, during, and after the physical changes to ensure that the compliance of fire safety codes and regulations. We may also consider upgrading the fire protection systems, alarms, sprinklers, fire-resistant materials, which may be necessary to address the new risk. Okay, for preventive principle, stage 5, demolition or demolish. Site personnel, okay, their safety is important under the preventive measures because demolition activities present unique fire risk and also presence of some flammable debris, exposed wiring, and use of cutting and welding equipment. Okay, so proper training, enforcement of the use of personal protective equipment, PPE, and establish clear emergency procedures is necessary. We have regular site inspection and risk assessment to identify and lower and minimize the potential hazard. Effective communication and supervision allows all the workers to be aware of the fire risk and know how to respond to emergencies. Now, for structure on which they are working, the structure being demolished poses specific fire safety challenges. And for example, the fire protection system may be promised or removed, which will increase the fire risk. And it is also important to isolate some utilities, safely remove hazardous materials, chemical goods, for example, maintain a clear access route, and also emergency responders can access freely. Okay, next is the detection and communication principle for the design. Now, for the design, during the design stage, the type of detection and alarm communication system available needs to be considered. Especially for high-rise buildings, the potential for communicating to all the occupants inside the building at once, as well as per evacuation zone, should be considered. Okay, sometimes it's difficult to have an announcement for the whole 100-floor building to evacuate at the same time, but we need to separate into zones of phase evacuation. Now, automatic system include the detection, communication, or even suppression system. Sometimes the suppression system will link with the detection system. Okay, warning system. We have the warning being activated, voice alarm systems, visual alarm systems, fire service communication. Okay, how to notify the fire service and fire brigades. Building configuration, which is having internal geometry, sight lines, and spatial layout for wayfindings. Now, for detection and communication principle during stage 2, the construct, presence of detection and communication first is related to phase implementation of permanent systems and also temporary systems for detection, communication, and warning activities. Sometimes they are fixed and sometimes they are mobile, related to the communication. And we have the site office situation, similar, but this one have site information, site office to be considered. Fire service communication and education of workers, especially nowadays when we have more foreign workers which have the language barrier, okay? And we need to have sufficient signage to clearly indicate the safety routes, etc. For safe in use, when the building is in use, the focus will be on ensuring that the installed systems are available and functioning as intended. Okay, so we may have inspection, testing, and maintenance, ITM, of the communication system, fixed and mobile, detection system, and we also educate the staff and occupant. Okay, and ensure compatibility of new modules and existing systems. Stage 4, change. Okay, as stage 1 and 2 together considered the fire safety strategies and measures with continued function of existing system during refurbishment. Okay. Even though we have renovation, we have refurbishment, we need to make sure that the function of the systems are still exist, continuing. Signage, appropriate existing system to changed layout. Okay. Even with the extension of sprinkler heads, okay, to coverage of an additional areas may also be considered. Okay. With an extension of sprinklers. Preventive principle with demolish. Okay. At stage 2, but it should be considered that any automatic system is likely to have been decommissioned and not offer the previous protection. Okay, so in fact, if you look into the stages, okay, the next will be occupant protection principle with stage 1 to stage 5. Okay, so we are going across the matrix. Now, evacuation procedures, okay, which include simultaneous evacuation. And we may also have phased evacuation, zone evacuation, protect in place and protected lobbies, and also refuge area or refuge floors. Okay, so we need to ensure that evacuation communication is effective. And at the design stage, establishing effective evacuation procedures is important to protect the occupant. Especially, the designer must plan clear and accessible escape routes, which can accommodate the building's expected occupancy and use. Okay. An example may be in older days when we have karaoke establishments, especially during the festive season or weekends. The karaoke boxes are usually crowded with people more than it is expected. For example, a room for 2 to 3 persons may have 5 to 6 people inside. So this, in fact, will affect the evacuation capacity or discharge capacity. Originally allowed 100 people, but finally it come up to 200. And the evacuation time, the speed, the velocity, the limit of the corridor width will also affect the evacuation of the occupants. Okay, building configuration and features. Now, this is important to be considered at the design stage because, for example, the architects must consider some factors such as the number and placement of the staircases and stairwells. Corridors, no dead ends should be provided. That means all the routes should have two-way of evacuation direction, 2 directions for evacuation. The dead end situation is occurred when, for example, we have corridor end without any exits, which may be blocked by fire source, okay, or ignition, that the people may trap there and cannot evacuate. Features like fire-rated doors, compartmentation, and protected escape route helps to prevent the spread of smoke and fire. And this also leads to the next point with fire and smoke being well contained. Okay, so with fire resistance rating materials or materials with fire resistant rating, there may be smoke barriers and some compartments to confine and contain the smoke and limit the spread of flame and toxic gas. Okay, proper design containment systems with dampers and well-sealed penetrations may help to maintain a safe evacuation route. Now, for the occupant characteristics, of course, as we are adults, there may be possible or possibly children or elderlies, okay, in a shopping center or shopping mall, or even with people having disability who needs to, say, sit on wheelchair with walking sticks, etc. Okay, so design consideration should include accessible exits and visible and audible alarm, and some with refuge areas for those who need assistance. Okay, and depending on the usage of the premises, whether it is an elderly home, okay, or it is a kindergarten, okay, or it is a hotel with sleeping risk. So the occupant characteristic will be different in different premises. Fire service intervention. Now, this includes providing access routes for the fire brigade or fire engines. Okay, we have the EVA, emergency vehicular access, which should be free of obstruction near the site. Okay, where the fire engine can have U-turn or have the turn at the EVA being available for firefighting and rescue. Now for stage 2, construct workers characteristic, which include the number and types of workers and other personnel and their responsibilities, staff training, accreditation. We may have security guards, some work procedures being carried out by different people, and trained operators and ability to rescue. Temporary evacuate plans and procedures. Okay, and we adopt control and communication procedures with respect to phase complete evacuation route and temporary impairment. Building configurations and features. For example, we have regular walk downs configurations. For the occupants, protection principle in use. The education of occupants include training and preparation for escape and evacuation, okay, such as the fire drills to be carried out from time to time. Even in the PolyU campus, you may read some emails or notice about fire drills to be carried out every year or in certain core or the library, okay. And good housekeeping, which ensure the escape routes are clear. Designated fire wardens. They have inspection, testing, and maintenance of fire systems to make sure that they are kept in good condition. Okay, no blockage of the sprinkler heads, for example, by piled up goods. Okay, otherwise the spray pattern may be different or affected or obstructed. Procedures for extraordinary use or circumstances. Now for this, okay, we may consider large gatherings or evacuation path impairment being, blocks. Coordination with fire service, okay, with the firemen and firefighting personnel. Change, stage 4. Increase in number of occupants and change in ability of the occupants to escape. For disabled person, for children, elderly, to be taken into account to adapt the occupant egress conditions. We may also modify the escape route with regard to the corridor width, for example, and the travel distance, the length, okay, to be shortened. Demolish. Temporary modification of escape routes shall be communicated to all the workers and occupants. Okay, so next part will be the containment during design stage. Combustibility and smoke producing characteristic of materials and systems to be noted. The lining, internal lining materials, the wall surfaces or the partition finishing. External fabric of the building, okay, may be considered. Contain the compartmentation. We have mentioned this several times. Compartmentation, if you look at the diagram on the right side, okay, fire compartments, fire rated compartments, fire resilient walls, ceilings and floors, fire doors and shutters, fire rated glazing, okay, ductwork, and dampers, okay, which is connecting, for example, the ductwork from FJ304 to FJ303. Okay, in between, we should have the dampers, fire stopping system, etc. Okay. Fixed firefighting system include the suppression system, sprinkler heads, sprinkler system, structural integrity. We ensure that if it is loaded, the wall is loaded, there will be no collapse because it has structural stability and adequacy. For smoke control, smoke hazard abatement, management, and smoke protected lobbies are some of its examples. Now for containment, stage 2 construct. Physical construction refers to fire protection to be installed shortly after installation of combustible materials. For example, we have foam insulation and timber frame structures. Carry out inspection during construction. We may have the sign off by the relevant parties, documentation of as-built condition, and procedures that avoid fire ignition on special works like hot spots. In use, okay, we have inspection, testing, and maintenance, T&M, of the system need containment as the documented during design and construction. For education of occupants, try to see how to avoid minor works and promising complementation with fire protection of combustible walls and floors. Housekeeping, okay, also related to education. Recognition of suppression system, smoke control, avoid interference. Okay. Okay. Now for the suppression system, we assumed it is water-based with sprinkler spray, whereas smoke, hot smoke rise to the ceiling, okay, because of the high temperature and less dense of the hot smoke. Okay. But if water spray, okay, cool down the smoke, which rises to the top, okay, there may be a chance that the smoke are cooled down and try to sink. Okay, so there are interference between the water droplet and the smoke, hot smoke, which will cause interference, and this should be addressed. Gas assessment between the existing provision and requirement of current standards. Okay. Change includes anything from a deep renovation to minor alterations. This change include anything from deep renovation to minor alteration. So if the use category of the building changes, it will be necessary to revisit the strategies outlined under the design phase because the usage is already changed. And this ensure that it is appropriate for the updated use, okay, regarding the management strategies, and also ensure containment of fire is achieved during the change state. Okay, this requires the fire safety strategies and measures from the design stage to construction stage, all to be considered. Demolition. Same fire safety strategies during constructions are of relevance. Okay, so containment measures to remain present for as long as possible. If the containment measures cannot be maintained, operational approaches, for example, a fire watch may be necessary to address the potential hazard. Okay, extinguishment. Now, we try to consider design again for extinguishment. Secure access routes for the fire service. So proximity to the nearest fire department or fire services station with respect to their arrival time. Okay. And we also adopt or adapt the parking conditions around the building and according to the access. Protection to the firefighting access routes outside the building or inside the building. Facilities need for firefighting, for example, the hydrant risers, whether it is a dry riser or wet pipe system, okay, depending on the usage, whether there are single hydrant outlet or twin outlet, depending on whether it is industrial building or other buildings. Lifts, elevators, lobbies, fire extinguishers, okay, something like that. Availability of building information. We need to have, for example, digital building information and clear signs within the building. Environmental protection, which refers to impact of water runoff and adjacent hazard and proximity of proposed construction to existing built environment and constructions considerations. Secure firefighting safety with structural resilience and limit critical phenomenon. Okay. Also, the firefighter need to have a well-structured and without or with a good stability of the structural wall in order not to allow the collapse of the wall which may bury them to death. Therefore, not only the occupant, but also the firefighter's safety should be of concern. Okay, extinguishment construct secure access route for firefighter, facilities needed for firefighting, water supply, vertical access, manual firefighting equipment. Site information such as the clear signage of the hazardous materials. Okay, extinguishment principle, safety in use. Maintain clear routes for fire lanes. EVA, inspection, testing, maintenance of facilities. These are repeated, and I do not say it again. Availability of building information. For example, inspect the signs are in places. Liaison with fire and rescue services. Now, the staff should be well trained and prepare the occupants and the residents to escape, okay, with their location clearly identified. For example, sometimes we may have the roll call, okay, to see whether the number of occupants present is having a tick in the checklist. Good housekeeping relating to extinguishing facilities, signage, and fire service access. Change. Housekeeping. Ensure continuous fire service access. Availability of building information. Temporary signage is needed. Liaise with the fire rescue. So this is quite similar to previous one. And we also need to have appropriateness of existing firefighting facilities and changed layout and use. Okay. Gap assessment, okay, is also necessary. For demolish, okay, the same strategies used during constructions are of relevant. Okay, now the development of fire safety management plan. Now, fire safety management is in fact a kind of software which monitor the hardware, which is the active fire surface insulation and also the passive building design, okay, to make sure that they are well maintained, they are kept in good conditions and perform its function as intended. For the primary objectives of fire safety management program or plans, they safeguard lives and have property protection. And they also ensure business is continued by minimizing the risk and impact of the fire accidents. They may have preventive measures, which helps to, of course, with the word prevent, okay, to have inspection regularly, maintenance of the fire protection systems, so as to ensure that the ignition source are well controlled and clear escape routes are maintained, and have proper housekeeping practices to reduce fire loads, etc. And we also need to have proper staff training and awareness campaign to help reinforce some safe behavior and make sure that everyone knows their duties and response in fires to prevent fire to occur. Secondly, the objective is to ensure proper control of fire risk inside the building. Okay, and this involves evaluate the building's design, occupancy, process, and materials to determine the potential fire hazard. And we also promote fire safety concept to the occupants. So this ensures success of the fire safety management plans and strategies to be carried out properly through training sections, signage, regular communications, etc. Now, furthermore, for each, there are some examples. For example, for the preventive measures, arson that set the fire on purpose by the tri-gang, for example, or some people who do not have good intention in their minds. Electrical fire, usually accidental, overloading of the fire plugs and have installing surge protector circuit breakers and ensure proper grounding, okay, which will enhance fire safety. Staff should be well educated about the fire safety in electrical appliances. Okay, report some issues. For example, some faulty appliances or some, say, the wiring broken, okay, should be noted. Accidental fire, okay. For accidental fire, it may be resulted from human error, negligence, or some unsafe acts or practices. Explosions, okay. This requires detailed assessment of the process and materials, which may pose a risk. For example, flammable gases, chemicals, or some pressurized equipment, pressurized. Natural causes, lightning strikes, okay. We may have earthquakes, which may break the gas pipe, which may also lead to fires, okay. Tsunami, forest fire, etc. So ensure proper control of fire risk inside building. Control of fire load, which is the amount of combustible inside the building. Okay, so we may have different hazard occupancy. For sprinkler systems, we have light hazard, ordinary hazard, and high hazard, which depend on the amount of fire load and the combustibility of the goods inside the building. And we also need to provide sufficient safety measures, both passive and active. Okay. For passive measures, it's the structural protection, the wall, partition, the beam, the columns, etc. Whereas the active ones, it is the fire surface insulation, which helps to detect, attack, and respond to the fire. Promote fire safety concept to the occupants. Okay, so fire safety training, posters, notice are necessary. And in fact, in the YouTube video, well, maybe I can play it just the first 7 minutes during the break. Also, you can view it, or you can have free time during this 7 minutes, or you can view it at home later. Okay. So let me see. Slide 39. We still have some slides before we go to next section. So I know that the time is 2023. So I will play the video now and we will start again at 8:30. Thank you. So in the video, some points are reiterate as explained and mentioned earlier in the class. Now, let's look at slide 40. Okay. Now, in case of fire, make sure that the safety measures are available and the occupants will be able to use all the measures. Also, they can help the people to reach a safe place. Especially the firefighters will be able to reach fire scenarios in the shortest period. Okay, no delay, and in fact, make sure that all are provided available because we need to ensure that they are properly designed, maintained, and can be operated. Excuse me. To ensure the occupant will be able to use all the measures, we need them to have proper training. Need to make sure that in-house staff are well trained in advance, not wait until there's a fire, then they react. Okay, no, but proper actions to be taken with proper training and provide proper fire action plan. Okay. Usually we will have three main plans in the fire safety management plan. We have the maintenance plan, staff training plan, and the fire action plan. So the first two plan, the maintenance plan and the staff training plan, are during the normal mode of operation, whereas the fire action plan is during the fast mode of operation or the emergency mode of operation. So we need to know and train the staff to assist occupants and use all the safety measures properly. Now, ensure the fire safety measures will help the occupant to reach a safe place. For example, there should be sufficient information, the routes, the layout plans, usually provided at the back of the door in hotels or even in campus rooms, lecture theaters. We will also provide maintenance for means of escape, the MOE, with regular inspection to make sure that no rubbish bins or no obstacles which block the way in the exits, passages, and stairs. And they should be trained to help the occupant to evacuate and provide proper maintenance of the external escape facilities. Ensure firefighter to reach scenario shortest period. For example, the fire marshal or fire safety manager can provide layouts and records of the building. Okay. For example, after taking the roll call, you find someone is missing, then you can notify the occupant, notify the firefighters, and provide firefighting access, means of access to provide fighting and rescue, provide communication between buildings and fire brigades. Now, for the maintenance plan, as I've mentioned, the maintenance plan and the staff training plan are two plans under the normal mode of operation, whereas this is the emergency mode of operation. Should be, let me see, should be MEM. Normal mode of operation and emergency mode of operation. Normal mode. This is normal mode. This is emergency mode. So for the maintenance plan, we have maintenance of the passive system, such as the escape route, the escape doors, fire doors, whether there are any blockage in the corridor, the width of the corridor should be kept clear, being fixed, no obstruction of any, even the hose rail should not block the way. Are there any damages? Okay, any damage to the fire safety system barriers, equipment must be promptly identified and reported. Timely repair of damaged fire safety features to restore the full protection function and make sure that the building remain compliant with the code's requirement and the occupants are well protected. Maintenance of active system detectors. Okay, try to have well designed locations of detectors, sprinklers, no blockage, as I've mentioned, by power goods, extinguisher. They should of suitable agent to be applied to different areas. For example, no water should be used in electrical services plant room. And we may consider foam to be used in car parks, some cases, hose reels, okay, to be well provided with the 30-meter tubing coverage should be less than that, okay? So in case if you have a layout which is greater than 30 meters, you may add additional hose reel, which will be able to protect every part of the building without clinking. Information and plans, okay? The layout, according to the accurate building layout, even with after renovation and refurbishment, if there are changes and updates, the layout plan should be the most latest one. Evacuation routes or escape routes, they should be clearly marked and documented with evacuation routes, which is needed to guide the occupants to escape. And the plan should be highlighted with available exits and also where you are, okay? Occupants, information about the number, the characteristic of occupant, for example, their age, mobility, any special needs, okay, is important, okay? Nowadays, we have barrier-free access for all the people who need to access through wheelchairs. And in fact, tailored evacuation procedures should be available and allocate suitable resources to make sure that all the individuals are properly evacuated. Information. Okay. Some comprehensive fire safety information, such as emergency procedures, the contact details, and equipment locations should be readily accessible by all the occupants. Okay. And they should be properly informed with clear instructions and updates. Okay. Signs, okay, well-placed and lit signs, visible ones, okay, should be located next to the exit, fire extinguishers, and emergency instructions being given. Good housekeeping, okay, proper rubbish disposal is the key with respect to good housekeeping. And we also have removal of the rubbish regularly with safe storage of goods, prevent obstruction of the escape route, use of heat source. For example, the heaters, the stove, okay, cooking facilities with open flame, electrical equipment is essential to prevent fire occurrence. Okay, and all the heat source should be kept away from the combustibles, regular maintained, and never left unattended. Now, for the second plan is this staff training plan. Okay. We need to have designation to staff duties. So everyone need to know what they are responsible for. For example, some of the staff themselves, for example, of the seniors, need to take the roll call or try to check the floor or the doors, whether they are closed, and make sure everyone is evacuated. Fire warden, okay, they may have some gift or responsibility and duties. Use of equipment, how to use portable extinguishers, guide the occupant to safety, give instructions clearly. Training, describe and explain emergency procedures. During some video played or music being loudly played, we should try to cut off the instruments and videos in order to give some pre-record instructions for the occupant to evacuate in, for example, again, karaoke establishment. Explain the duties and responsibility of the staff and take appropriate actions. Take account of findings of risk carried out under regulations. And besides, some actions to take on discovering the fire. Okay, so if you discover a fire, how to act properly and quickly. For example, sound the alarm, alert the neighborhood and the occupants, your friends, for example, or your colleagues, evacuate the area. So do not attempt to tackle the large fire by yourself. May prioritize your safety, your own safety, and follow established emergency procedures to make a swift and organized response. How to raise the alarm and what happened. Actions to take upon hearing the alarm. Okay, stop activities immediately and proceed to the nearest exit. Procedures to alert numbers of public and visitors. Okay, try to have clear verbal instructions and signage, for example, given to them. Okay, arrangement for calls the fire service. Nowadays, we may have the direct telephone link, which may reduce the time for delay or calling by calling 999. Location and use of firefighting equipment. Okay, make sure that where the portable extinguisher or the fire blankets, okay, are provided. Location of escape routes. Have regular review and practice, okay, during the fire drills, so that the staff and the occupant can escape quickly and confidently and find the nearest exit that is not blocked. Importance of keeping door closed. Okay, so this relates to containment of the fire within a compartment without openable door wedge open and allowed excess oxygen supply. Stop machines process and isolate power supplies. Okay, sometimes the Class C fire, which is electrical fire, if you cut off the electricity supply, it will come Class A, which is combustible materials, and have good housekeeping. Okay, is trying to keep the workplace tidy and remove the waste promptly. Now, fire action plan. As mentioned earlier, the previous two plans are during the normal mode of operation. That is when fire not occurring. Whereas the fire action plan is what to do in case of fire happened. Inform the fire brigade. Not only have the direct telephone link connected, but also try to guide them to the fire of origin in the building, especially those who have complex design. Okay, maze-like structure. Okay, it's difficult to find the routes, okay, for escape for the occupant, but also at the same time, it's difficult for the firemen to find the location of the victims, okay, and rescue them. Assemble the occupant load to safety. Okay, number of occupants refer to the occupant load or the occupant load factor. Usually, we notify the occupant load factor from the building's code of practice. We noted, for example, each person will occupy 9 meters square per person. In office, for example, office building. So we note or we can estimate the number of occupants, for example, in a 900 meter square area, okay, there is around 100 people. Okay, so the occupant load should not exceed it. Okay, try to attack the fire, especially when it is at small stage or early stage, and while it is still small, the fire is small. Otherwise, you need to run away and allow the fire engine or firefighter to fight the fire. Assist fire brigade. Okay. Now the next part will be the fire safety manual. Okay. For the fire safety manual, we refer to the British Standard 9999. And the British Standard itself is the code of practice for fire safety in design, management, and use of buildings. And the Annex H, okay, is particularly refers to the safety manual. And in the safety manual, okay, there are lists of items. Okay, and in fact, it mentioned that the manual should have assumptions and philosophy which lead to fire safety design. And it also explained the nature of the fire safety plans, planning, draw documentation at design stage, and have responsibility of the staff and the management regard to fire safety. And they also need to provide continuously updated records. Okay, any changes update or have the alteration work to be marked. So the actions to be taken by designer. Okay, it is the responsibility of the designer in the first instance to initiate and create the fire safety manual of the project. So the designer should also inform their clients of nature, function, and capabilities of the fire precautions that have been designed into the buildings, especially those of which the nature might be less evident, okay, not obvious. Now, for actions to be taken by the fire safety management team, we noted that the fire safety manager or the fire marshals or the fire safety designated representatives should try to have upkeep of the manual. Okay, this type of manual should not be just placed there, but it should be well communicated, well updated, and have real implementation of the procedures and actions should be taken. Now, the initial occupants of the building need to develop the manual provided by the designer at handover. So they need to know what is being designed and what is during the buildings is under occupied, and what to do, what needs to be done. Provisions need to be made for recording the result of monitor test evacuation, the drills, result of tests of fire safety systems, the active fire service installation, and also other relevant information. The fire safety manual should also be made available for inspection or test by auditor. Okay, the third party, for example, regulator, the government, or the officers for operational purpose of the fire and rescue service. Now, the design information in the fire safety manual is listed in the following slides. We have A to AA, that is 27 items. Now, the first one is the fire safety policy statement. Okay, we have the policy statement being clearly identified and documentation. What information available, identified fire risk, okay, the source of ignition, for example, and what is the particular hazard? Are there any dangerous goods or ignition source or combustible materials? We also have control system utilized throughout the building. Okay, is this a fire suppression system, water-based or gaseous agent being used? Critical transportation routes for building services. Okay, and site plans. Okay, note modifications or any evacuation routes available. Assembly points. If it is a school, maybe the basketball court. If it is a shopping center, maybe the entrance runner or the space outside the main entrance of the building or the premises. Stations. Access for rescue service, okay, where the firemen can go into the building and fight the fire. With what equipment? And what is the communication systems available? Okay. This include details of alternative formats, okay, if provided. And we also have full description of the system, both active and passive, to the building. Okay. Full description of all the other design aspects which have direct bearing on the fire safety management. This include at the management level, the operator's manual, okay, how to operate the fire safety system, okay, inspection, maintenance, and repair manual, okay, prevention and security measures. For example, some measures are to prevent arson fire to occur, okay. That not only fire safety, but security, as I told you, the security and fire safety may be counteract in some sense. Okay, the Q item, okay, which is detail of interaction with security, building management, and other safety systems. Okay, next is the drawings of the building identified the smoke control zones, fire detection zones, and video cameras, voice alarm zones, and key equipment locations. Okay, so we may have the detection zones being identified, but the alarms may be considered to be larger. Description of basic fire precaution measures. Okay. Documentation of from contractors and manufacturers. Include instructions, some guarantees and test certificates, and some spare parts will also be included. Spill drawings, specifications describe the details of the components and also systems in the building, equipment operating parameters, record drawings. In accordance to the British Standard 1635 for all the fire protection measures. Okay, V, the result of acceptance tests. okay, which might involve the regulatory authorities and insurance companies representatives. Okay, fire safety is important as also it is covered by insurance. Okay, no matter it's our home or the shopping or the hotels, etc. IT system, okay, used to manage the fire safety manual and information relating to approval, certification, licensing with the copies of the certificate and license. So this may include also the maintenance schedules and record keeping, okay, for the manuals and for the certifications. The last three, pre-planned procedures for salvage, information, which relate to other reasons for protecting the building. For example, the property, the contents, what is being placed and stored inside, the fabric. Sometimes we have heritage, the historical building or the historical, heritage being considered. Environment may be another. Any other information needed. So the building safety manager can manage the building safely and also carry out any necessary fire safety risk assessment accordingly. Okay. Now, in fact, the reference, okay, quoted Malhotra, although in 1987, but it is the first the first researcher who defined the fire safety management with, say, protection of the or maintenance of the fire safety provisions. We also considered training of staff and also the fire actions in the Code of Practice for Fire Safety in Buildings. Now, before we end, I would like to go to the Buildings Department Code of Practice. Last time we also go through, but I would like to emphasize the fire safety management section. So we have Buildings Department Hong Kong Code of Practice. Okay, Buildings Department codes. So for the 2024 edition Code of Practice for fire safety in buildings. Okay. And as we go through it briefly last time, we have means of escape, means of fire resisting construction, means of access, fire property of elements, building elements, fire safety management, part F. Okay, it's of course it's important because it is a section on fire safety management in the building code. Okay, so it's of course it's the legislation aspects of fire safety management. Now in 173. Okay, there are several sections, section 1 to section 5. Page 172. Okay. Now, we also noticed that they have given or provide some guidelines to manage for fire safety provisions. Okay, we have management and maintenance, the provisions. And the performance requirement for fire safety is clearly stated, the scope, okay, and also commentary is a further description of, for example, how the maintenance and management of provision is being carried out, okay, and by different means, for example, passive, okay, active, okay, ventilation system. Okay, these are the basic provisions and systems, competent persons, okay, and checklists. We also have building owners, which engage competent person to coordinate the maintenance work. Okay, what are the responsibility of the competent person have been detailedly listed. Now, for the section on fire safety management, okay, it's detailedly described how often, regular intervals, and have routine maintenance and inspection, etc. Okay, and it is also stated in the building planning regulation 41 A, B, C, and D, and the building construction regulation. So this building planning regulation and building construction regulations are also under laws of Hong Kong. Say chapter 123, which is the building ordinance, and within which there are some subsidiary legislation. So for details, you can refer back to lecture 1. We have some notes on that. Now, to ensure effectiveness, safety management, fire safety management, or sometimes we call it FSM, implement throughout the documentation. And we have the fire engine approach to be adopted, the fire safety management plan, and the bounding conditions. Okay. Now, the fire safety management plan in clause 4.5, clause F4.5 includes the maintenance plan, training plan, and the fire action plan. And for maintenance plan is further described in detail in the subsection. Okay. And also regular inspections for the unauthorized building works, the UBW. And we also considered carrying out some changes, A&A, alteration and addition works, renovation and repair works. Okay. After that, okay, open kitchen, how to deal with the management. Training plan, section 4. Okay, proper and adequate training have to be provided. Okay. Description of the duties for the staff, fire drills and seminars, okay, to be taken place. So it mentioned that the importance of drills, the occupant training, especially for some tall building evacuation. Not only the building elements like refuse floor, but also required managed evacuation strategies and training of all the occupants. Okay. So if you read through in details, you can find lots of important points. Now, fire action plan. Okay, procedures to be taken in case of fire. Okay, we dial the 999, we inform the occupants, help them to evacuate. It also includes evacuation procedures for person with disability. Okay, temporary refuge spaces being provided. Okay, now for appendix for F1, it have the sample checklist on housekeeping. Now, according to means of escape and fire-resistant construction, assets for firefighting and rescue, and others, okay? Each have different items in the checkbox, whether it is yes being provided or no, it is not provided, or answer A is not applicable. And if it is not properly provided, no, what is the follow-up actions needed? Okay, so the list is not exhaustive. Okay, you may have additional of items if needed or necessary. Okay, so part F or part F on fire safety management ends in 185 page. So I hope that well, for this subject, you are having open book, so you may not be necessary to memorize all the things, but some relevant points you may highlight it and read through it before you attempt the questions or examinations, etc. Okay. We still have about 15 minutes. Do you have any questions? Now, for the British standards, I think you may access also from the PolyU library. Did I show you last time we have the British Standard Institution? Maybe I quickly go through that. Okay, PolyU library. Main page. We go to database. B. Okay, British Standards Online, BSI. So PolyU staff access online. With your ID and password. Take some time. So if you have BS, let me check. Okay. Okay, the BS British Standard 9999 2017 2022. You can access in your subscription the for example, you have the wait for the document to be downloaded, send for download. Okay, so you may access to the standards and have the let me see, preview, quick view. Okay, anyway, you can access to that. Okay, just in case if you cannot download, you can also well, print the page if you find it useful for you. But I think I have extracted the key points out to the slides. Okay, fire safety in the buildings. Oops, what did I did? Sorry. Sorry, quick view again. Or preview. Preview. Okay, this is a preview. So it has some information regarding the publication dates, etc. Yeah, the content, the general recommendation and backgrounds. Oops. The risk profile and assessing the risks, ensure effective fire protection, etc. Okay. And Annex H will be the fire safety plan, fire safety manual, sorry, fire safety manual with the fire safety management strategies. Okay. Sometimes people ask fire safety management plan, fire safety management manual, fire safety management strategy, or fire safety management elements. Okay, actually, you may consider a plan or manual have different plans. For example, the maintenance plan, fire action plan, or the staff training plans. And within the plan, there are some elements related to fire safety management or strategies, that is the tactics or the skills, okay, that used to perform in order to have proper fire safety management. Okay. So you may have fire safety management plan or fire safety management scheme, okay, which is equivalent, okay. And of course, in different codes or different standards, there may be different terms being used. Okay, any questions? Now, next week, we will have a topic on the code review and performance-based fire code. Now, for code's review, we will base on the, say, the codes, for example, the one that we just shown to you. It's the code of practice for fire safety in buildings. Okay, this one is a popular one. And another one is the active fire services, which is the FSI code. Which is the red book. This one. Okay, although it is white in color in the website, usually have the cover to be red in color. So we sometimes call it the red book. Okay. Okay, someone in the chat. I hope I got enough help. COB, yes, you are right, Mr. Poon. Thank you. Will it teach the heat detector coverage? Heat detector coverage will be covered in the fire engine system. But, maybe part of it will be covered. Okay, I think you asked last time about the separation between the sprinkler heads, right? So in fact, for a quick look, you can go to the checklist. Let me see. Checklist chapter appendix 4, if I remember correctly. So in the codes, you will note about the requirements. Okay. I think here, the 5.3 and the 7.5 distance between the smoke detector and the heat detector. You may be able to find this here, okay? So useful to knowledge. I often use this in workplace. Okay, thank you. Okay, so any other questions? If no, maybe we end here. Okay. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Okay, and hope you all the best and safe trip home. Bye-bye.